Hello everyone, welcome to Coffee Cup Enlightenment. Just because our ego is within us doesn't mean it is us. This is what causes ego to keep perpetuating and repeating itself like a Groundhog Day over and over again. It speaks on our behalf, it talks on our behalf, it gestures on our behalf, and here's the kicker, it's actually getting upset of its own comments on our behalf. And because this all happens within us, we assume it's us. It's only natural. It's almost inevitable that the ego is going to be built within us. It was constructed pretty much from about 1 to 2 years old, and it took language. What is the ego? It's an idea. So how can an idea be us? And not only is it an idea, it's an idea that comes and goes. We actually forget about it many times throughout our day. It switches online, offline, online, offline. It comes and goes. It's like a passing cloud. It gives its 2 cents worth towards situations, makes comments, and we habitually, through our conditioning, identify with this commenter as us, and this reactor as us. Whenever our ego is offline, we're calm and peaceful. So this is proof and evidence that we're not our ego. And our ego is in a permanent state of disturbance. Why? It's because it's an idea. It's not us. And an identification with an idea as being us is the expression of disturbance. It's a perfect symbol of what it's meant to be. That's why that's all the ego is. It's a never-ending, perpetually, increasingly growing state of disturbance. The more you identify, the more you assume its disturbance is your disturbance, and the more its judgments and comments overlay and distort our reality. Evidence that our ego has disappeared. The things that used to make us cry now make us laugh. Things that used to make us cry when we were 5 years old, now at 40 years old, we're laughing about it. That's proof and evidence that we're all transcending our ego every day anyway. The act of mindfulness is only to accelerate the process much faster. So, you can use mindfulness. Whenever your ego gets upset, see if you can bring a distinguishment and discernment between you and it. If you can do it properly, I assure you there's a opportunity that you can actually explode it in the moment there and there, at least a part of it. And if you're lucky, you may achieve full enlightenment. Full enlightenment did happen to me once, but it only lasted 1.5 days. And after I woke up one morning, it happened. It was sort of like amidst a dream. As I opened my eyes, it happened. And then at midday the next day, the 1 million kilograms of heaviness returned. The state of enlightenment means you just go back to normal. It's impossible to identify with your idea-based personal identity ego anymore, because you can see it's just an idea. So that's the definition of enlightenment. It's no identification, because it's absolutely impossible and utterly impossible for you to do so anymore, because there's a distinguishment and discernment between you and it. You can see it was all just a mind idea in your head that came, looked important, seemed to be you, seemed to be valid in its comments, seemed to be justified in its comments. And we have great identification as our personal identity, as us being this ego. But it's not. It actually undergoes many changes throughout the weeks. Every week it's getting upgraded more than your mobile phone. When you were 2 years old, you didn't even really have an ego yet, because you didn't understand language in order for these ideas, with which language comes by, for the ideas to be added upon. And that's what the ego is. It's almost like a big jigsaw puzzle of ideas which keep getting added upon. Some ideas get deleted, new ideas get added, but the basic structure is said to be there from about 7 years old. So we've all got this basic ego structure from as a 7-year-old, pretty much, and then it just undergoes all these changes. But the purpose of life is to transcend our egos, simply by saying, shop's closed, see you later, ego. I'm not believing in your stories anymore. You're just a figment of my imagination. You're nothing more than just an idea in my head. And that's why in my last video, I am not the disturbed one. Use that as a mantra. Use it every day, 40 times a day. If you're getting 40 disturbances a day, use it. Every time there's a disturbance, see if you can recognize, close your eyes, and much better done when you're by yourself, when you're having personal, if you can call it that, personal disturbances. Not necessarily, not as easy to do this when you're in a situation with people. But yeah, when your ego's having a bit of whinge about the situation and there's no one else around, see if you can close your eyes and bring a bit of mindfulness. Obviously, don't do it while you're driving. And say, I am not the disturbed one, and see what this sentence means. I am not the disturbed one. What does that mean? And then you look at the one that's being disturbed, and you look at its concept, its commentary that it made about the situation, and you also notice, hey, yeah, it's true. As soon as that comment was made by the ego, it got disturbed by its own comments. I can see that now. And if you can do this properly, where you actually see that it made the comment and it got disturbed, and you can actually sense yourself as not that disturbed one, man, you can have an enlightenment experience there and then. I haven't had them much. I've probably had them maybe half a dozen times in my life, but it has happened to me, especially when I first started mindfulness 25 years ago. In the first, took about 1 year where I just listened to mindfulness CD. I listened to Power of Now and a New Earth every day when I commuted to work for about a year, and wasn't ready to do mindfulness yet. I just listened to the CDs every day. They're Eckhart Tolle CDs. And then the first day I started mindfulness, after 1 year, bang, I looked at a major structure within myself. And never seen it before. I just assumed that's me speaking. That's me, which is ego. So ego is just the assumption that we believe our ego is us. When there's no more assumption, when you can actually start to detect and discern and distinguish between us and it, that's the end of ego, the beginning of the end of ego. And that's what happened on my first day. Bang, I saw this ginormous structure that had repeated itself like Groundhog Day for decades. And at the first time I'd seen it, and I looked at it and thought, wow, that's just I didn't say wow, but I had a realization of sort of, wow, that's, that's not me. That's just an old record player spinning in my head. And then when I saw that, and I could distinguish and discern myself from it exploded into a million pieces and dissolved and shattered into a million pieces and caused euphoria. And then the second day, the same thing happened again to a different structure. Same judgment disturbance happened. I looked at it. I stood back in silence without judgment. I looked at this, and it, bang, again, euphoria. Shattered into a million pieces and dissolved that structure. Then on the third day, it did it again. And then throughout the first 4 years or so, I had multiple enlightenment experiences. And then after about, I don't know, it might have been about 12 years after doing mindfulness, so that's when I woke up that morning. And actually, I don't even know my timelines, but maybe it was even longer than that. And where the full enlightenment happened. That's the complete and utter, woke up in the middle of a dream, and it was a visualist dream. I don't know, that's the only way I can describe it. It was a knowing dream. And I knew that I was not this ego like seconds before I woke up at 6 in the morning. And in that knowing, 1 million kilos was lifted in an instant. And what is enlightenment like? It's just pure and utter love, that's all. No more emotions, because emotions come from thoughts, which come through the ego. And it's the emotions are generated through the thoughts. So there's no more thinker, no more emotions, no more judger. You don't need none of that. There's just spontaneous knowing about everything. You operate in a totally different way. Who knows what this world will be like living in enlightenment? I can't imagine. I don't know, going to a normal day-to-day job in the enlightenment state will be quite funny, maybe. But yeah, there's just pure and utter love. It's like you could be spat at and slapped in the face, and there'll be no not even a glimpse of anger or upset, because you need to be a somebody to be upset. And that doesn't exist in you anymore, because that somebody was just an idea. So that's what enlightenment's like. There's no more personal identity anymore, because you're not a somebody. That somebody consists as an idea, and you are not an idea. That's what's realized in enlightenment. And it's an overwhelming sense of normalness. A normalness that you knew was there, like in the Matrix movie, in the back of your mind, like a splinter in your mind. And it's just so right there in front of your face, and it's just gobsmacking when you return back to this normalness. Pure and utter, unimaginable, unspeakable, immaculate, impeccable love. That's what's left. Because there's no one, there's no another or other anymore. They're just concepts, they're ideas. You are not a somebody to be offended. And if you can't, if you're not a somebody, there's no anger, there's no fear, there's no judgments, there's no resistor, there's no resistance, there's nothing, none of that. It's pure and utter immaculate perfection, and that's who you are, ultimately who we all are, underneath our ego. So that's why it's very important. I encourage people, please do some mindfulness. Look into mindfulness. Check out my mindfulness videos. My YouTube channel is called Coffee Cup Enlightenment. It's matured over the years. My videos, they started back, I don't know, 10 years ago, but they've changed a lot. I was just watching one just today, and from, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago, and yeah, there's a different wordings I use these days, but I try to keep the message simple, and that message is who we are underneath is pure and utter perfection, and everything else is just a floating idea in front of our eyes, and it's up to us to see this idea and not take it personally. Only the ego takes itself personally, and we're not that. So just see if you can look at it with undisturbed eyes, impersonal eyes, chin up eyes, stern eyes. These are just flavors and gestures that I'm pointing to in a way on how you can look at your ego with sternness, but then even then drop all of that. Just look at it with normal eyes. That's the ultimate looking, because whenever I have made big transitions, it wasn't really doing those tips and tricks there, but it was mainly just looking at through normal eyes. But you can use tricks as well to change your physiology a bit. Maybe put on a smile to your ego, even though it might be a fake smile. You're going like that to your ego. And it's important to encourage yourself to sort of maybe push through, and even though it might not be realized that you aren't your ego yet, and it seems so much like you, as it does to all 7 billion people on this world, absolutely convinced and utterly immaculately convinced that they are their ego, as we all are. It is a process to eventually build up a bit of awareness muscle towards this ego. Look at it with distinguishing discernment. Encourage yourself to not frown at it. Wipe that frown off if you can, because it's the ego frowning of itself and getting you to identify you as you being the frowner. And then that's what keeps it looped up again.